It sounds objective, even-handed, just the facts. But AI systems can quietly produce skewed, unfair results without ever saying anything obviously offensive. That hidden tilt has a name: bias. And to use these tools well, you need to understand where it actually comes from. In everyday language, bias means an unfair leaning. In AI, it's similar, but more specific. A systematic skew in a system's outputs that consistently favors or disadvantages certain people, groups, or viewpoints. The key word is systematic. This isn't a random mistake here and there. It's a repeatable tilt baked into how the system behaves. And usually, nobody intended it. So where does it come from? Mostly, the data. These systems learn patterns from huge amounts of human-generated data. And our data carries our history, our stereotypes, and our imbalances. If the data reflects a world that treated groups unequally, the model learns that pattern as normal. It isn't learning how the world should be. It's learning how the world was written down, flaws and all. But bias isn't only about what's in the data. It's also about what's thin or missing. If a group is underrepresented, the system simply has less to learn from, so it performs worse for them. This is why some tools have worked well for certain accents, languages, or skin tones, and noticeably worse for others. The gap isn't malice, it's absence, and absence still produces unfair results. And humans are in the loop more than people think. People decide what data to collect, how to label it, what the system should optimize for, and which answers count as good during fine-tuning. Every one of those choices carries assumptions. So even with the same raw data, different teams' decisions can push a model toward different defaults. Bias can enter at the design table, not just the dataset. Here's what makes AI bias hard to catch. The output usually sounds calm, fluent, and neutral. It rarely shows up as something openly offensive. It shows up in the defaults, who the system assumes by default, whose perspective is treated as standard, which examples it reaches for first, what it frames as normal versus unusual. It's not loud, it's a quiet thumb on the scale. On its own, one skewed sentence is minor. The real problem is scale. These systems increasingly help screen job applicants, assess risk, moderate content, rank search results, and decide what you see. When a subtle tilt is applied to millions of decisions, small unfairness becomes large, systematic unfairness. And the people affected often never see why. These are well-documented concerns, not a claim about any single product. It can also feed itself. Biased outputs go back into the world, into articles, decisions, and new data. That data trains the next system, which can repeat and even amplify the original skew. Left unchecked, bias doesn't just persist, it can compound, with each round making the pattern look more normal than before. So what's being done? Several things. Building more representative datasets. Testing systems separately across different groups instead of one overall score. Techniques that reduce measured bias. Human oversight in high-stakes uses. And more transparency about limits. But there's no perfect fix. Even fair is hard to define. Different reasonable definitions of fairness can mathematically conflict. This is ongoing management, not a solved problem. So, AI bias is a systematic, usually unintended skew that comes from biased data, missing data, and human choices. And it's risky precisely because it sounds neutral. Treat outputs as reflecting their data, not ground truth. Watch for hidden default assumptions, and keep human judgment where decisions actually matter. Next episode: why AI refuses some questions, and who decides what it won't say. See you there.